What's up, everyone? Curtis here with another episode of Everything Entrepreneurial. In this episode, I'm speaking with Ed Purnell. Ed is the founder of Disenfranchised, and Ed's on a mission to educate and provide guidance to people so they can explore starting a franchising business. He also runs a podcast called The Disenfranchised, where you can hear from entrepreneurs, experts, and leaders from across the franchise community discovering their life stories and their tips for success away from the typical 9 to 5 grind. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Okay, Ed,
Sure.
thanks very much for coming on Everything Entrepreneurial. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. So my name's Ed Purnell, and what you say, introduce my business. It's a business in progress at the moment. It's something that I'm starting to build, and it's called the Franchised. But it all came about really from the podcast that I created initially called The Disenfranchised. And the business is sort of building out in the background behind that.
So tell us a little bit about that. Like, so what is this whole Disenfranchised podcast before you started the business?
Sure. So I guess I've got a bit of a story behind that. If you don't mind me sharing, I'll go into now. But basically, it's going to start with me talking about my career. So bear with me, all right? But it all makes sense. So during A levels, I quite liked money, right? And I had a part-time job, and I didn't really enjoy education. So I left education. I went full-time into this job that I had, and it was basically putting up marquees for a living. So kind of like a glorified laborer, really. And it was great fun. I was there with my mates. It got me some beer tokens, and I was playing football 5 times a week and going out partying the rest of the time. And it was great fun. And I did that all through my kind of late teens until my early 20s, when I had this kind of moment of realization that I needed to kind of grow up. I remember where I was in a nightclub looking at the young kids that were in there thinking, hang on, something's got to change now. I've got to change my life. So that was about 6 years into putting up marquees, and I decided that I needed to use my brain more. I needed to find something that was going to be a career, something that I could build upon, and something that would challenge me. And at that point in time, I struggled to find anything. I was labeled as a laborer, and no office-based roles were really interested in me because they couldn't see the skill sets I had. I didn't ever have any high-level qualifications. So for the next 2 years, I struggled to get out of that world. And I remember just turning up to work feeling miserable, and it wasn't enjoyable. So eventually I found an opportunity with a recruitment company, a high street recruitment company in the UK called read.co.uk. And they gave me some great sales training, really enjoyed it. But that was in 2008, 2009, when the big recession hit. So all of a sudden it became a really difficult task to operate in that world. But I think I learned a lot from it. But the main thing that I remember from that point in time was that there were a lot of MDs, CFOs, those kinds of people who had been made redundant that were applying for the jobs that I had. And these jobs were data entry, secretarial, administrator, paying, 18,000, 16,000 pounds a year. So really didn't make sense for them to be going for them. And I just felt bad turning them away all the time, saying, I can't help you, look somewhere else. So fast forward in my career, I ended up moving into a different world of recruitment, recruiting for oil and gas professionals around the world in all the lovely places like Kazakhstan, Iraq, Angola, Nigeria, and Aberdeen, all the good places. So that was great. It was really lucrative. And I kind of learned how to really properly do business development, how to engage with people at a really senior level in big corporate companies. And it felt like being an entrepreneur in many ways, because I had my own desk that I had to start from scratch. So I had to go and find my clients and then provide a service to them and keep on building up this way. So that was something I learned. But something that really sticks out is in 2014, the industry had a massive crash in the oil price. So the price of oil went from $145 a barrel down to $25 a barrel, which basically means all projects stopped. The whole industry just ground to a halt. So what I was seeing was tens of thousands of people being made redundant every single day. And what happens is they, of course, try and apply for the jobs that I do have. But these guys had really niche skill sets. There was things like subsea Christmas tree designers, right? Like, what the hell was one of those? But that was their niche for their whole career. And they were trying to apply for jobs that weren't within their remit. They're applying to my colleagues' jobs in life sciences, within manufacturing, and they're just getting turned away constantly. So as another thing that's really stuck out in my career, after 10, 12 years in recruitment, I then realized it wasn't the career I ideally wanted. It wasn't something I was enjoying doing. There was a lot of just searching through CVs, sending out the same message time and time again, same conversations. And I wanted to do something different. So I kind of sat down, had a conversation with myself, and decided that, I'm quite creative. I enjoy coming up with new ideas, and I like variety in what I'm doing. And I identified marketing as a world that could be something that allowed me to be happy in what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. So I set about looking at courses that I could learn online to try and get myself up to speed, and then try and find a job within a design agency. And there's plenty of them around Kent, and I applied to them all. And over the next year or so, got absolutely nothing from them. They weren't interested. In their mind, I was a recruiter and didn't have transferable skills, although a lot of my time was spent marketing, networking, that kind of thing. So I thought about setting up my own business, own design agency, and just got a little bit scared of the size of the competition and how can I compete? They've all got degrees and experience and all of this stuff. And so never did it. And in the end, I found an opportunity with a company called Expense Reduction Analysts, who go into small to medium-sized businesses and help them to save money. They wanted me because of my recruitment background. So they sell franchise licenses to other professionals to join their network and then operate this expense reduction analyst business. They were going to allow me to do some marketing as well for them on that side. So it really worked really nicely for me. I could use my experience to keep my employer happy.
Yeah.
But I could explore this creative side of me that I could build and learn. And over the next few years, it's been amazing working there, and I've learned so much in that time. But one thing I also noticed, or one thing I learned, was that franchising, and this is where it all starts to make sense, right? Franchising was the solution to all those touch points in my career. It can help people to transition into a world where they're given all the training and support to go and do something completely different in their life. They don't have to be an accountant forever. They can actually be a cost reduction specialist maybe, or they could go and walk a dog, or have a dog walking business, or be a tutor for children, or have a kids activity business. So with that support and guidance, it could be a solution for a lot of people wanting to change careers, but also for those MDs, for those highly skilled professionals in the oil and gas industry. Like for them, I know they had big redundancy money paid out to them. So rather than just sitting there eating into that money, waiting for the next job to come up, they could have gone out there and set up their own business. So for me, I was amazed that they hadn't thought about this as an idea. And I started to think, why is that? And there's a real problem there that I thought everybody should see this as an option. And so after a good few months of moaning about it to everybody, I decided to do something about it. And so I set up the podcast called the Disenfranchised. So it's aimed at people that are fed up with employment or corporate life, the 9-to-5 grind, so to speak, and just showing them that there's this other option out there for them that in a lot of cases you can find funding from banks and from governments to actually help them buy into a franchise license and set up a life that they actually want. So yeah, I speak to founders of these franchise businesses. and experts from around the industry, and I'm trying to spread the word as much as possible. So sorry, a very long-winded explanation to your question there, but that's why I set up the podcast, really.
Brilliant. And so you never obviously had the skills in setting up a podcast or anything before. So you obviously had to teach yourself some basic kind of knowledge. Did you enjoy that? Was it difficult for you? And if people wanted to start their own podcasts, would you recommend? Do you have any tips for them? Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, sure. So in any project, the part of the project that I love is the beginning, where you're going out there exploring, researching, and piecing together how it actually could work. And there's lots of testing and trialing and saying, okay, that didn't quite work, let's tweak this. But I think the main thing that I did in terms of the research was just go on YouTube, right? I listened to lots of podcasts anyway, and I just thought, okay, I like this style of so Adam Buxton podcast was one I really liked. So I tried to model it a little bit on what he was doing, and then I started to listen to business ones and understood, okay, this is the sorts of questions people are asking. I spoke to my friends and colleagues and said, what do you think I should be doing? What sort of questions should I be asking? And I built a vague, rough structure around it. And then felt really nervous about trying to reach out to people. So I spent then a lot of time looking at how to perfect everything else around it. So what mic should I get? What editing software should I be using? Where should I be promoting it? So I did all of that in the front end, but in reality, what I just needed to do was just do it. Let's just find someone, speak to them, and give it a go. And I was lucky enough to find it's funny actually, he has a franchise that is marquee business, right? So we got chatting just because of the marquee connection, and he was sort of talking about, maybe I'm thinking of doing a podcast, he was saying, and I was like, same here, why don't we do one together and just see what happens and go from there. And just a really nice guy, really helpful in terms of putting me at ease in what I was doing. And I mean, I listen back now, it's not perfect, but it was a starting point, right? Where it put me on this journey to where I don't think it's perfect right now, but it's getting there. So I think if anyone wants to set up a podcast, definitely do it and just get doing it. I mean, if you want to practice something, maybe just set up one where you interview your friends about their top 5 favorite songs or whatever it may be, you know, their favorite meals. Just start doing it, and after a while it just becomes comfortable, natural, and then maybe go into the piece that's going to be more beneficial for your business, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about, you said that you're in the process, or you have just started this new business venture. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about your feelings, your experiences, your mindset. Give us a little bit of insight into how you're feeling through all of this.
Yeah, sure. So with speaking to franchisors and franchise experts, these are all very entrepreneurial people, and every single one of them is inspiring in one way or another. And when I'm asking them questions about how did they start their business, why did they start their business, and what's it making them feel and do, it really got to me and gave me the bug, you know, and reminded me of what I was doing in recruitment. Was, okay, I was getting a salary, but everything else I was doing is what an entrepreneur was doing. I've just struggled to get over that risk fear piece, especially when I've got 2 young kids, 5 and 7. I've got my wife as well, who's training to be a teacher, so not on a salary that perhaps she was used to. So you've got these financial commitments always in the back of your mind, and you kind of feel, yeah, when's the right time? And what I've learned is there's never a right time. You've just got to start doing things. And one person I spoke to, Chris Goodchild from his franchise is Magic Mirrors and photo booths. He takes them around to weddings and sets them up, and he's selling that as a franchise business now. He's got quite an inspirational story in terms of where he came from to where he is. And he was very passionate in saying that instead of sitting there and moaning about your day-to-day life, your business, he wasn't aiming this at me. He was giving this as advice, by the way. But he said, stop moaning about it and just do something about it. If you've got to work 9 to 5, do that, have your dinner, and then work some more. Get on with it. Don't moan about it. Work till 12 o'clock if you have to, but that is how you're going to get out of this position where you're miserable and just turning up for the sake of it. And so that's what I've started to do is, work more hours to overcome that challenge of having to have money there as a salary, but doing something in my evenings and weekends as well. So that's when I do most of the podcasts. But in speaking to a lot of these franchisors, what I've realized is I've built up quite a big network now, of course. So that's a real benefit of doing podcasting, is not only can you promote your business and get your face out there a bit more, but you can also just start to make friends and get people to know what you are. And I think as long as you share your story, like I've done with you today, people start to buy into it and think, actually, I can see why this guy, is someone that maybe I could work with in the future. So what I'm now looking to do is try and find other ways to promote franchising to a new audience. So I'm coming up with campaign ideas for franchisors so that they can pool their money, and together we can go out there. I create the collateral and content for them or with them, and place it in places like social media, where perhaps they can't get to on their own, or they don't have enough clout to have an impact. So by doing that collaboratively through me and through the methods and approaches that I know work, it's something that's gaining some interest, and it's starting to work. So yeah. And the other thing as well with podcasts is you can get sponsors as well. So I've got a sponsor now as well, which I'm really chuffed about. And that was without chasing anybody. It's just because my podcast was out there enough, I'd promoted it enough that someone thought he's got an audience that could be suitable to me and my business. So let's have a chat. So yeah, I've probably rambled on a bit there, but hopefully I answered your question.
That was a lot of good detail, a lot of good information about setting up a podcast and how to you spoke a lot about networking as well, which I think is super important. No matter what business you're in, I think networking is fundamental, especially like in my own experience. Word of mouth has been everything for my business and growing it. Don't really advertise online, even though I'm a digital agency. It's through meeting people, having good relationships, doing good work and getting referrals. It's going out and meeting people, having people on the podcast, all that stuff. Like it's really, it's key to a lot of small business growth initially. And anyway, so you spent a lot of time networking. How did you find these types of people, these franchisors? How did you reach out to them? What did you do?
So I was kind of lucky that I'm working for a franchisor. So I was allowed into groups that were franchisors, in particular during the COVID period. They're fantastic at supporting each other, even when they could be perceived as competitors. They're in there saying, look, I'm really struggling. I don't know how to manage this task within my business. How can somebody help? And when they started, so once I was in that group and they started talking about recruitment for franchisees, well, that's where my expertise is or was for them. So I was able to offer loads and loads of advice to them about the market, about the way it sort of shifts from advertising to proactive search and how they can go about it, how they need to probably adjust to delivering online webinars rather than doing face-to-face meetings that they used to do. This is all stuff that I'd quickly learn and develop myself so I could pass that information on. So I think they became quite receptive to me pretty quickly. And I guess I'm not too shy in those kinds of environments. I have to admit, I don't like big groups of people. When there's a big circle of people talking to one another, I find that really difficult to engage with people and find myself kind of naturally kind of veering away from those kinds of conversations. But when I found when it was on this online environment, I don't have to look at everybody. I can just look at the camera and actually that works better for them because I'm more engaging, but it worked better for me because I didn't feel that kind of nervousness around me. So yeah, that's where I started mainly. But in these groups, there's Facebook groups for franchisors coming together, and yeah, they were just posting up stuff on there, and I just started engaging that way. And the first podcast guest came about from one of those groups on a webinar. But then I also just put a post in there and said, does anyone fancy telling their story about how they started their franchise? And I got about 10, 15 of them come back to me straight away. So it was then, wow, how do I get this moving? It's real now. I've got to do something, which is good, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and like you said earlier, like a lot of fear can stop people from starting their entrepreneurial journey. It's funny, you know, I truly believe that the barriers to people, it's all in their mind. And I've experienced it myself, you know, the fear, the doubt and everything. But like really there's nothing stopping most people from starting a business. Like I know we all have financial commitments and I understand all that. But like you said, if you're willing to put in the work, like sacrifice your time, sacrifice your evenings for a while just to get to that point, you know, like I think more people can be doing this type of stuff. And just to touch on earlier when you were talking about fear, I think a great way to approach business is to treat it like an experiment. So if you're a startup or whatever, because when you treat starting your business like an experiment, most experiments fail. You know what I mean? Like, you know, this might fail. You're taking how much this starting this business means to you and you're putting it aside. You're separating your feelings from an actual activity, you know, that way. And if you approach starting your business like, right, I'm going to do this. This is taking action. I'm going to do this. If it fails, we'll see what happens and see how we can improve, how we can fix it, you know. And then as you start taking those little steps in a couple of weeks, couple of months, you look back and you're like, geez, I'm actually after starting something already. And all your feelings and all your emotions and everything that were stopping you from actually taking action, they're irrelevant now because you're already in motion. You know, you have some momentum. So I think that's a really good way of kind of looking at your fear, putting it to the side, treating starting a business as like an experiment or like, you know, like a science experiment or whatever, and just approach it that way. What do you, on your experience, how have you managed those points of fear and doubt and stuff so far? Because you're just starting off. So how are you navigating that?
Have a couple of beers and then just do it then. No. Well, I say that because I had an idea that's been bouncing around for a while, and I'm keep thinking to myself, I'll wait till the right moment, wait till something happens, you know, and it's just pushing it to one side. And really what I just needed to do was just do it. And yeah, I had a couple of beers. I was messaging one of the franchisors on LinkedIn, Ryan Armitage. He's got a recruitment company and recruitment company franchise. And he said, it sounds like a great idea, just do it. And I was like, all right, I will. So I just sent out a message again on the Facebook group and just said, hey, is anyone up for creating some advice videos with me? So that series should be out kind of in January now. Anyone up for doing it? And again, another sort of 15 franchisors just went, hey, yeah, definitely be up for sharing and helping. Great idea. Thanks. And so I built a bit of a campaign idea around it. And yeah, just in the process of getting people going. So I think just do it is like one of the best phrases out there. But I want to share, you're talking about fear there. And I've spoken to lots of great people who've given advice around this. And one of the things that I think is really important to do, there's a couple of things actually. So identify what are your core values. What is it that you enjoy doing? What is it you want to achieve? And what is it that you need to then do to get to that point? So for me, I knew in my life, my career, I needed something that would offer me variety. I knew I needed something that would allow me to have more control. I knew it had to be something that I could be fairly flexible with because I want to spend time with my kids, you know? So I wrote them all down and thought, yeah, I'm going to do something about this. The next thing then is once you've got that, that's your goal, that's your target. okay, what do you need to get there? And ultimately, there's going to be a risk at some point thrown into there. And that's when the fear kicks in. Alarm bells go off in your head and go, well, what if it doesn't work? I'm going to be no money. The kids are going to have no clothes. We're going to struggle with food or whatever it may be. And you'll never get rid of that fear, I don't think, not from what I've heard from everybody else anyway. But what you can do at that point is sit there and write down, okay, all of those concerns that you have, actually kind of factualize it so you can see it and know what it is that you're worried about. So it's not just an emotion inside, much like what you said, but also write down what would happen if you don't take that risk. What's going to happen if you don't take the risk? The likelihood is that you're going to be in the same boring job you always were, or in the same situation, not earning the money you want, not having the control you want, not being challenged in your life, not making an impact, whatever it is. And that might actually weigh up to be worse than what if you have a couple of months without money, So I think that helps to actually get you beyond that fear. You're never going to get rid of it. You're never going to be 100% certain, but it'll encourage you to take action more. And then from there, just start writing out, what do I need to do? Set up a limited company. Does it need to be VAT registered? Can I do it sole trader? Do I need to get privacy policies in place, contracts, trademarks, all of those good things that you need to do, but write it out like a checklist. And if you don't know what you don't know, go and find an expert who can actually help you. I was very lucky. One of my podcast guests offered me an hour of her time. She's a virtual personal assistant, and she did that for me. And I'm internally grateful for her for doing that, because it's helped me to, again, almost factualize what I need to be doing and have a plan and a path to grow. So that'd be my advice, is start writing things down, I guess, and work it out from your ultimate goal and target in life, and working back from there.
Brilliant. So tell us, what is 2022 looking like for you? I want to know a bit of your personal goals, if you have any. If you're hopefully going on holidays, we don't know what the crack is with that. And then also business goals, podcast goals. Tell us a little bit about 2022.
Sure. So I should have mentioned in my values, something that I love doing in life is experiencing new things. So I love trying new foods from around the world. I love trying to cook them as well at times. But I love traveling and seeing new sights and experiences. And I want my kids to have that same feeling of enjoyment going to see, maybe an old castle that's somewhere in Greece or whatever, or, being in the middle of just some random street party that sort of happens. So I want to do more traveling, and as part of the thing that I've done to help me stay focused, I've got in my bathroom, we framed it. It's like a departures board image, which has got all the countries and cities that I want to go to. So the Grand Canyon, I can't remember off the top of my head now, Lisbon, loads of different places that I want to go to that I haven't. And I'm ticking off one of those off the list next year. So San Sebastian, which is in northern Spain. It's like got the highest concentration of Michelin star restaurants there. At the best steak in the world and all that sort of stuff, and little pinchos. So that's something I can't wait to do. That's something I want to do. We're hopefully going to take the kids away to Greece. It's a place myself and my wife love, and we want them to experience that life as well, or that world. So taking them to Corfu. What else is there I want to achieve? Get better at guitar. I mean, I can do a couple of things, but I'm nowhere near an expert. And I'd like to be able to play maybe one Jimi Hendrix song. That'd be quite nice to do. It's probably aiming a bit high, but I'd like to get somewhere towards that. And then on the business side of things, so I want to get so behind the Disenfranchised podcast. The website I've called The Franchised, which I'm looking to help franchisors to get their story out there more and into a different audience. So a lot of the franchisors advertise to people that are already in franchising. So I want to kind of break beyond that into new industries and into people who are thinking about changing their career and aren't aware of it as an option. So the website's likely to turn into like a franchise directory, but also a database of advice for anybody who's just thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. And there'll be some advice in there around things like trademarks and how to set up a limited company or who to speak to, but also about franchising as well, as a kind of an easy introduction into it as an option for their career, for their lives. So we've got some campaigns planned to release those videos. But yeah, for my podcast, it's hitting about 200 people a month at the moment, I'd say, and I'm looking to get that up to 1,000 a month. Be really good by the end of next year. I'm on most social media platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. LinkedIn's the one that I'm probably more successful on. So I want to kind of reach out to those other platforms and increase the followership on there as well. So without putting numbers on it, those are kind of the rough plans for next year.
That sounds good. I look forward to watching you grow in 2022 and keep you accountable. I might touch base with you every now and again and see how you're getting on. If anyone wants to find more or wants to follow your podcast or wants to find you on LinkedIn, what's your links?
Yeah, sure. So thefranchised.com is the website, and that's where you can find the podcast and a little bit of information about the brands. As I say, I'm in the process of building out the website, so it's got a lot more detail on there. But just Ed Purnell on LinkedIn, you'll find me probably promoting the podcast or something about music or food at some point, or my kids. So yeah, reach out to me if anybody wants to find out anything about franchising at all. I'm happy to share what I know. And yes, I am working with expense reduction analysts at the moment, but I'm happy to give a very broad viewpoint on franchising as a general. I do that a lot at the moment anyway. So happy to help out where I can for anybody that's listening.
Brilliant. Well, once again, Ed, thanks very much for taking the time out of your day to have a chat with us. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best.
It's been a real pleasure, Curtis. Thank you so much for your time and for inviting me on. Cheers.